What's going on, everybody? My name is Alex Wilson, the host of Fireside Giants, along with my co-host Anthony Rivardo, who cannot make it on the channel today, but this is an Empire Sports Media production. You're listening to the Fireside Giants podcast. If you are a diehard Giants fan, you've come to the right place, my friends. Daily episodes and so much more as the NFL draft is quickly approaching. Now, today's episode, I kind of wanted to take a look at your mock drafts I posted on Twitter, kind of getting some interest there to see what you guys think and what players you think should be available and who the Giants should take at 5 and 7. If you aren't aware, the Eagles made a blockbuster deal with the New Orleans Saints, trading back and getting a 2023 first round pick. They still have some mid round, I think the 18th and 19th pick, something like that. And then the Saints, of course, I think they have the 16th and 19th pick. So they're definitely in range to trade up with the Giants and maybe try to get a quarterback if the Giants are willing to go back that far. A lot of people say they don't want to trade away the 5th pick, would rather trade away the 7th pick, which is totally reasonable if you think about it, because those 3 top offensive tackles, Kayvon Thibodeau, Sauce Gardner's, a lot of really great talent at the top of the first round, and the Giants, of course, are going to want to be in the mix for those. But I wanted to take a look and grade some of the mock drafts that you guys came up with on social media, and I think you guys have a pretty similar trend going on, and it looks like the offensive tackle position is one that must be solved with the 5th overall pick. Now, there's some reason to believe that Evan Neal, offensive tackle out of Alabama, could be available with the 5th overall pick, especially if teams are looking to move up and acquire a quarterback, whether that's Malik Willis out of Liberty or Kenny Pickett from Pittsburgh. Honestly, the more hype around the quarterbacks, the better for the New York Giants, because they can trade back, another team can move up, which would, in theory, allow one of those top offensive tackles to drop. And if it's Evan Neal, I think you run to the podium. The dude is like 6'7", 330 pounds. He ran a faster 40-yard dash than Ike Ekwonu, who's 30 pounds lighter. And there's even the potential that Evan Neal and Kayvon Thibodeau could be available. And that's the first one I do want to take a look at. Nick Laprinzi on Twitter. His draft has the Giants taking at 5th overall Evan Neal and Kayvon Thibodeau at 7th overall, and Kenyon Green at 36. So I'm only going to take a look at the first and second rounds here, because there's a lot of guys to go through. I want to get through as many mock drafts as possible. But if the Giants were to walk away with Evan Neal out of Alabama, Kayvon Thibodeau out of Oregon, and Kenyon Green from Texas A&M, interior offensive lineman, you're looking at, one of the best draft classes we've had in years. All 3 of those picks are A-plus picks. Evan Neal's your immediate starter at right tackle. Kayvon Thibodeau has arguably the most upside as a pass rusher in this draft class, has a ton of pass rush moves. He can seal the edge. He has the charisma to play in New York. He's definitely one of those guys that New York fans would love to have, especially when he's producing. But, they did give him, the Giants did give him a hard time during his pro day. They did interview him on the side, a formal interview, and they did kind of try to test him. Would he be able to handle the media if he can't produce a sack for 5 games? What if he's, injured? What if he's not making an impact? How does he deal with that type of pressure? We've seen the New York media get to players before. We've seen what it does to guys, and sometimes it's just overwhelming and they can't handle it. Can Kayvon Thibodeau and his charismatic nature actually, fight off the negativity from the media and push past it and end up having a good season or a good game the next week? That's the question that revolves around him. Some people think he's overrated, and to be quite honest, no draft prospect is a polished prospect. So Kayvon Thibodeau, of course, while has a lot of raw talent and some well-developed talent, there's a lot left to grow there, and he's not going to come into the NFL as an all-pro player immediately. The best we can hope for is our defensive coaches can get the most out of him. Kenyon Green, you're talking about Texas A&M, can play multiple interior positions. Getting him at 36 in round 2 would be really great for the Giants. They could use another interior guy, especially on rookie contracts. Cost control contracts are the Giants' best friend right now. They're in the midst of a rebuild, and ultimately, when you're looking at what the Giants need, they have no money to spend until next offseason. The draft is where we're looking to build a foundation. I think Evan Neal, Kayvon Thibodeau, and Kenyon Green in the first and second round would be an absolute home run. It's not even a question. So Jack here has the Giants taking 2 offensive linemen, Ike Ekwonu and Evan Neal, at 5 and 7. Rather interesting. And the Giants do acquire he has an interesting trade here where the Giants acquire the 29th overall pick, 94th overall pick, and 233rd in exchange for James Bradbury and their second round pick. So they get a first round pick, another one, in exchange for the second round pick and James Bradbury. Now, the problem is if the Giants have too many first round picks, we're not going to be able to pay all these guys. We already need about $16 million in salary space just to pay our first round picks and the rest of our draft class this year. Both first round picks are going to count up about $4.5 million a piece. And then when you tally it all up, it's a lot of cash. The Giants are going to need a ton of money. They're still trying to open up some cash flow by restructuring some contracts. Notably, Adoree Jackson opened up $6 million there this week, but they need more. And where's that going to come from? Probably James Bradbury being traded. We'll see what happens, but I'm not so sure. I think I agree with Ikem Ekwonu and Evan Neal being drafted. Of course, you could kick Ikem Ekwonu into guard, but I think if you're going to go this route, you need to, bolster both sides of the football. Go with Evan Neal or Ikem Ekwonu, either or, and get yourself a defensive stud. I think that's the way to go. And ultimately, you could make the argument that going back-to-back offensive linemen would definitely solve an everlasting problem. But I think that good teams find mid-round picks, cheaper guys that can play guard and play it at a decent enough level to hold it down. It's tackle where the Giants have really, really faltered in the past. And I think that either Ikem Ekwonu or Evan Neal would do wonders for this team. I don't think you need both of them. I think the defense does need a little bit of love too, especially with Logan Ryan departing. And, they're very young. They do need some more talent, especially in the pass rush category. So here we go. JC Gifford has the Giants taking Evan Neal at 5th overall. So obviously you're seeing a trend here. A lot of people want Evan Neal, and they trade back to the 20th overall pick in the first round and the 84th overall pick they receive as well in the third round, and a round 1 pick, first round pick in 2023 in exchange for the Pittsburgh Steelers' 7th overall pick. So we saw the Saints and Eagles come together and make a deal. Now the Giants say we're trading back from 7. We're getting the 20th overall pick, and we are getting a third rounder and a 2021 first rounder. That's a ton of value. Do we want to do that? I would make the argument that's a pretty damn good trade, because the Giants are going to need another first round pick if they're going to go after a quarterback next year. We know the Eagles are making a run for it. We know they have 2 first round picks in case they need to have some insurance. If Jalen Hurts doesn't really end up taking that big step forward, which I doubt he does. He really struggled last year at times. You saw him against the Giants specifically, really had a bad game there. So if the Pittsburgh Steelers are looking to go up and get a quarterback, this might be a good trade for the Giants, and they get a ton of value. The 20th overall pick, you get Evan Neal. 20th overall, you can still get a good pass rusher, maybe a George Karlaftis out of Purdue, or an Andrew Booth cornerback out of Clemson. There's a couple guys. And with the 20th overall pick in this specific mock draft, Gifford has the Giants going with Nakobe Dean, linebacker out of Georgia, super physical. The Giants desperately need another linebacker to pair with Blake Martinez. Of course, they have Tate Crowder, also from Georgia, but kind of under athletic. I don't necessarily love Tate Crowder as a player. I think he's about average at best. He's maybe even below average. I don't trust him as a starter. He's a good depth piece, but that's the most he should be playing. You have Blake Martinez coming off a torn ACL. Can't trust him either. And then, of course, the Giant, he has, interestingly enough, a second trade in this mock draft where they trade back. They get the 32nd overall pick in exchange for the 36th in the second round and a round 5 pick, 147. And they take edge rusher Nick Bonito out of Oklahoma. So that's an interesting move there. So this is a really trade-packed draft for the Giants, are just adding draft capital for next year and this year. I don't hate it, but I don't think it's also that realistic, because I do think that with the way that Brian Dable, new head coach for the Giants, was speaking during his press conference earlier this week, he kind of sounded like they're going to be taking the best player available. Of course, they're not going to give away any plans, but I think that the Giants, they're bringing in a ton of guys for meetings. They had Trayvon Walker and James Cook, both from Georgia, at the Giants facilities today on Tuesday. And they've also been meeting with a ton of guys. They're going to dinner with Trayvon Walker as well. They've met with dinner with Sauce Gardner, Kayvon Thibodeau. They've done their due diligence on many different players. So I think now is an interesting time to see these guys come into the facilities and see where they're really putting a lot of value. James Cook, running back out of Georgia, I think would be a phenomenal pick for the Giants. But looking at Philip Santana's draft, he has Ikem Ekwonu and Ahmad Gardner. Now, there's a pretty damn good argument to make that Ahmad Gardner should be the 7th overall pick for the Giants if he is available over Kayvon Thibodeau. And I think this is an argument that we have all the time, right? Should it be Kayvon Thibodeau or should it be Ahmad Gardner? Now, I think that, when you're looking at this objectively, Ahmad Gardner is probably the better pick because Wink Martindale's system is heavily predicated on the talent of the cornerbacks. If you're going to trade James Bradbury, you want to have a good cornerback to pair with Adoree Jackson, right? Adoree Jackson, you could say he's a number one corner, maybe fringe number one, but he's a good scheme fit for Wink Martindale. He's fast, he's quick, and he's physical. He's good in man coverage. Ahmad Gardner, he's lanky. He allowed 6.6 yards per reception last year, only 131 yards in total. He can get a little bit of grabby. I think he's going to need time to really adjust to the NFL level. He's going to have some penalty issues. Teams are going to try and pick on him, but he's an extremely confident player, similar to Thibodeau. But then on the other side of that, you look at Thibodeau and say, hey, he has the all-pro potential that you might be looking for in an edge rusher. Pairing him with Azeez Ojulari, especially because we don't really have that much talent at the position, might be ideal. That might be something that the Giants may want to do. And if you're going to keep James Bradberry, you're going to have to restructure contracts, whether it's Bradberry, maybe you extend Bradberry, maybe you extend, or rather you restructure Leonard Williams, who they could cut next year for $18 million and save that insane amount of cap space, or Kenny Galladay, But then you have to get these guys to actually restructure in the first place. So you don't know if they're actually going to be willing to do it. But Ahmad Gardner, I think, personally, is the better scheme fit for Wink Martindale. But passing on Kayvon Thibodeau is damn difficult to justify, man. I really, this is one of those arguments that I really grapple with. I'm not sure exactly what I would do at that point. It's a really tough decision. I'd love to hear what you guys have to think in the YouTube comments below. And Philip Santana's draft also has Nick Bonito as their edge rusher from Oklahoma. So they do get Ahmad Gardner at cornerback, and they do get their edge rusher in the second round in Bonito. Let's take a look at another one. So this is interesting, right? So this one is a PFN mock draft simulator from Brendan. He has Ikem Ekwonu going fifth overall. So overall, I'd say a lot of people have Ikem Ekwonu, Evan Neal kind of crisscrossing there at number 5. Charles Cross, on the other hand, has not been mentioned so far. I haven't seen him in any of these mock drafts, so clearly people are a little bit sour on him. I'm not exactly sure why. I really like Charles Cross. I think he's a phenomenal pass protector. He may lack some functional strength when it comes to run blocking, but I think he's very quick. He's agile. He's got some good tendencies, and I think that he'd be a tremendous player for the Giants if he was coached up properly. And they do have Bobby Johnson, the new offensive line coach, so I think he'd do a good job there. But this draft has the Giants trading back with the Saints and landing George Karlaftis at 16. And they also have him taking Drake London. The Giants taking Drake London, wide receiver out of USC, who kind of had a hamstring injury and didn't participate in the combine. But Drake London, really intriguing receiver. There's a lot of teams that are looking for receivers this year. I'm not sure I agree with that pick. I think I'd rather go for a Sky Moore in the third round personally, with that third round pick. But Drake London, I'm not going to be upset about it. Depends what the Giants do. There's some rumors that Darius Slayton could be cut. They would save about $2.5 million. Of course, he has tremendous drop issues, and I think a lot of people wouldn't be that upset about it. Christian Watson out of North Dakota State's another guy who I really, really like. And he's a guy that I think the Giants would love to have. Now, this is an interesting draft from Chino Libre. He has the Giants taking Trevor Penning at 14, offensive tackle out of Northern Iowa, and Trent McDuffie, cornerback out of Washington, at 29. So he has the Giants trading back a ton and adding a lot of mid-round picks and some 2023 picks as well. But Trevor Penning, a lot of people kind of hit on Trevor Penning's athletic score, his RAS, his relative athletic score. He was one of the best when it comes to athletic grading. But I necessarily, I don't really like Trevor Penning for one reason. I think he's going to have a lot of problems as a pass protector early on in his career. And the Giants need somebody right now who's going to make Daniel Jones look good. They need someone who's going to help Daniel Jones become a good player, or at least show that he can be a franchise quality player. Trevor Penning is going to have monstrous issues in pass protection in his rookie season, in my opinion. He's a dominant, elite run blocker. He has that physicality, that aggressiveness you love. It's going to take him time to become a good pass protector. I just don't think he's ready to be a quality one just yet. It's going to take him time. Like I mentioned, I think the 5th overall pick is where you're going to get your offensive tackle who can make an impact in pass protection immediately. So that's kind of where I see the Giants going. I'm not the biggest fan of that draft personally. Here's another one where kind of a joke, but Evan Neal, Ikem Ekwonu, Kenyon Green, that's kind of a joke. Just all offensive tackles and guards and a center. Like LPG says, the Giants should be looking at 9 men in the draft. So this is, a lot of people have the Evan Neal, Ahmad Gardner combination, which I really like. I would be ecstatic with the Evan Neal, Ahmad Gardner, or the Evan Neal, Kayvon Thibodeau combination. It really is just between 2 tackles at 5. People don't have many trade backs. This one's interesting. This one actually has Kayvon Thibodeau at 5 and Evan Neal at 7. So flip-flop there. But I doubt Evan Neal drops beyond the Panthers. They desperately need an offensive tackle, another Evan Neal, Ahmad Gardner. They're all very similar. So it seems like people are kind of on the same the same wavelength here when it comes to where the Giants should go. It's either Ekem or and Evan Neal at 5, or Kayvon Thibodeau and Sauce Gardner at 7. So I think that if I was to give you my prediction right now, I'd probably be looking at the Giants to go something like best offensive tackle available. I know that Brian Dable said he wants to go best player available at number 5 or every pick, basically. And I think that they're going to have some of these offensive tackles graded very, very highly. So if I was to guess right now, I think that Ekem. I keep getting in my own head. I keep thinking like, and then I second guess myself. But maybe Evan Neal at 5, I think, is actually becoming quite realistic because it seems like teams are looking to move up for a quarterback. I think Evan Neal at 5 may be realistic. Ikem Ekwonu could go before him. I think him and Ikem Ekwonu are like tied neck and neck for a lot of teams on their draft boards. So I could totally see that happening. And I think it's going to be between Sauce Gardner and Kayvon Thibodeau at 7. And then the second round comes along. I wouldn't be surprised if they went with a cornerback or an edge rusher, depending on what goes on at 7. But I'd love to see what you guys think about these drafts. Who do you think is going to be the 5th and 7th overall picks? I'd love to hear your opinions in the comment section below on YouTube. As always, my friends, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Just taking a look at some mock drafts created by you guys. So I always love to, give you guys some attention and some credit there, and some really good ones. I think that everyone's kind of on the same wavelength. We need a defensive piece, a strong defensive piece, and a strong tackle with the 5th and 7th overall picks. Not many people have trade backs. So I wonder if that suggests that people would rather just go with best player available now instead of, really adding draft capital for 2023 and gearing up for maybe the potential departure of Daniel Jones after this season. But of course, the draft is coming up very quickly in a couple days. Was it 27th, 28th, I believe. So it's getting exciting. A lot of players are coming to visit the Giants. I'll keep you guys updated, of course, on social media of any players that do visit. Like I said, James Cook and Trayvon Walker out of Georgia did come to the facilities today, which is pretty fun and pretty exciting. I know a lot of people are not as high on Trayvon Walker as some, but James Cook in the 3rd round would be an absolute steal. He is super shifty. We took a look at him a couple of weeks ago, and he's a really exciting player. And I think that Brian Dable would have a field day with him. He could end up being a starting running back if he had a little bit more size. But as I said before, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Make sure to like and subscribe below, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.